I'll tell you, the biggest mistake that continues to be made is now, more than 2 weeks into this, we continue to allow open commercial air flights from countries that have been stricken by Ebola.
Let's focus on concentrating our efforts to stop it in Africa, but let's also make sure that we're protecting America's borders from it coming in here, too.
There are now doctors who are saying we're not so sure that it can't be, in some senses, transmitted by airborne.
What we need from the president is serious leadership to protect the American people. This shouldn't be a partisan issue. We should be protecting citizens of this country.
In fact, there are doctors who are saying that in a sneeze or a cough, some of the airborne particles can be infectious.
I'm sorry.
The administration, unfortunately, is not acting to protect our southern borders or to restrict commercial airline flights from places with an active outbreak.
This is like dealing with terrorism. We have to be right 100% of the time, and Ebola only has to get in once.
Joining me now, Charlie Peirce, writer-at-large for Esquire. All right, Charlie, can we start with George Will spouting absolutely irresponsible nonsense, which, again, as Dr. Aber had said, was sort of walked back by the source that he attempted to cite. You know, on national television, this is like the great intellectual of the right. He's the person that we're supposed to take seriously. I was really, my jaw was on the floor when I saw that clip.
At some point in the last 5 years, George Will was taken over by the spirit of Alex Jones, because his initial foray into crazy land was when he became a climate change denialist. Now he's an Ebola truther.
Yeah, and
I mean, the FEMA camps are not far down the road, I'm telling you.
The climate denial point is so key, too, because, Think Progress was compiling today. The Republican politicians are saying, well, I'm not a scientist, when asked a very easy question about where scientific consensus is on climate. People saying in one level, I'm not a scientist, and then turning around, giving you their epidemiological take on the spread of Ebola, all with the cause of further panicking people.
Well, I'll tell you, somebody should write a book about what happens to a self-governing democracy based on Enlightenment principles when it abandons, like, reason and empiricism. Oh, no, wait, someone already did write a book about that. But in any event, Chris, the first time I ever became aware of you as a journalist is when you did that great piece for The Nation about the NAFTA superhighway, which existed as an issue even though the NAFTA superhighway doesn't exist.
That's right. What is your take as you take the temperature of people, like whether people are actually freaking out? Because I feel actually the American people are maybe not as freaked out as people think they are.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I also think it depends on which particular closed loop of a media universe you happen to exist in. If you exist in the closed loop of the Fox News daytime AM talk radio loop, you're liable to be freaked out about anything. The further you get away from that, I think, the less freaked out you are. And since most people in this country aren't involved in that particular universe, I think that you're right. I think that the hysteria that that's being pumped into the dialogue by ambitious politicians and know-nothing pundits, I think it's dissipating a little faster than people think it is.
And I sort of marvel at the last 3 months of the news cycle, 4 months of the news cycle, which have been so sort of run by fear and threat. And there's some scary stuff out there. ISIS, monstrous and scary. Ebola, scary, doing horrible things to people in West Africa, killed someone here. Like, it's understandable. These are genuinely scary things. But the magnitude with which they're interpreted makes me think there's something about the American political consciousness that's looking for something to fear at all times.
I think that's part of the conditioned reflex that was placed into the American public and into our political culture by the last administration, in which, you had 9/11, then you had anthrax, and then you had the snipers, and then you had every bit of the government dedicated to scaring you about nuclear bombs from Iraq. You had 3 years of being blindsided by enormously terrible events. And then when that was done, you had a hurricane in New Orleans that the government's response to was awful, and the entire economic system collapsed what seemed like overnight. Yeah. So the ground had already been prepared by fake threats, and then you got real catastrophes for which we weren't prepared, and all of that adds up to the kind of thing you're seeing now.
Charlie Peirce, thank you.